So this is what we're looking at. Quick introduction, obviously. We have to do the needy and talk about the Enterprise Edition. That's how we get hold of the Enterprise Backup and everything. We'll be looking at full backups, okay, how to do different full backups. Then we'll do incremental and optimistic backups. What does that mean? How detailed or how granular can we go? And then we'll obviously, because we've done our backups, we want to do some restores. And then we'll have a look at a brief overview of real use cases as well as tuning, okay? Some ideas of how to make your backups faster, your restores faster, and so on, okay? But also, we want to be fair. I mean, we're talking about enterprise backup today, but if you're here looking at this session or you join the session and everything, it's a question of obviously backup is part of day in, day out, obviously. I bet you this morning you've already checked your backups. If they've completed successfully. If they haven't, then you've got one running right now for whatever reason. But what kind of backup do we need? And of course, this is one of the tools, one of the way we can do it, okay? So we can do logical backups, okay? We're talking about, using Mysql dump, which is, the same old. You've probably done that. You're probably fed up of doing all Mysql dumps. Also looking at MySQL pumps, okay, from 5.7 upwards. We're doing a parallel data dump there, so, we can obviously, export, and then therefore it'll be easier for us to import and parallel all the data. You've got the data export and import wizard within MySQL Workbench, so maybe you're doing that, or some other different tools there to do the same thing there. We're talking about physical backup, whatever type of physical backups you want to put in there. You can stop the environment, take a hard, cold copy, like OS backups there. You can see on the top right there. You've got your snapshots, depending on what type of virtualization layer or hypervisor you may be using. We can be doing snapshots there, or business copies, or snapshot copies, whatever you want to call them, taking copies of this operating system there, to make it easy to clone maybe, or to recover from. You can have continuous backups, okay? So in addition to all of these that you're running on a daily basis, I mean, for example, you can do a MySQL dump without the data just to do the structure, because maybe you've got a MySQL cluster. We're doing our backups, we also need to do the structure there. You want to do a cold OS backup because you can do that in your test systems maybe. So combining all of these in different layers and different ways within your organization. But a continuous backup is like, it's a disaster recovery solution. We've got a replica, maybe you've got a slave, and you've got a delay on that one, with a slave lag, so that we're keeping a copy that it's half an hour behind production or a day behind production, or you've got an additional slave of that, so it's completely up to you. We've got different binlog tools as well to do data mining within a binlog, so you can have streaming solutions if you want to do it that way. So those things can all be done in conjunction with everything else, as well as transportable table spaces. Okay, take a copy out of the table space. It's got our main data tables there, and we're keeping them safe, or even got partitions and everything. Whenever we're doing historical passes and we're pushing data from one partition to the more archival type of solution, we've got our transportable table spaces there. So all of these things could be in use. For one reason or other, to keep the data safe. But at the bottom there, you can see, the one thing is that we want to highlight there is one size not fit all. So, you probably will be deploying at least 2, if not 3 of, these solutions. And enterprise backup, obviously, can help you with different parts of these, whether we're cloning for a slave environment. We want to do a less cold backup because we can't do a cold backup. We need to do a hot backup. And the logical dump there, it just takes up so much time because to keeping a consistent copy there. So let's move forward. Right, okay, if I have to explain this slide to you, why backups, I think we can dedicate a whole day about this one. But obviously, and it's not unexpected I have to explain it to you, but maybe it's senior management or even people who are controlling the purse strings, because of course time is money, and we don't want to waste time on things that don't give us a direct return on our investment. Go on, I'd said it. But what's the most important thing? Well, data is the most valuable intellectual property. Okay, you have to protect it from loss. You've gained that data, however way, shape, or form, and you will need to protect it. We want disaster recovery. We want hardware and software and developer or DBA errors solved and safe to be safeguarded against all of that. What about migrations or upgrades? Changing hardware, changing software. We can create our replicas, okay, for a HA setup from a backup. Archival. Maybe if we create a replicant, then for once we've got that data safe and safeguarded for the next 5 to 10 years, whatever, we can truncate, we can purge, we can delete data safely, knowing that we have a copy of that data kept away. We can move big chunks of data, so maybe we've got a terabyte solution, multi-terabytes, or even larger, but we really don't need that online. So what you may want to do is kind of create an archival system, or just move that data out for different types of uses, and we're separating out there. And you can also set up test environments, okay, make smaller, emptier, the data masking or data, obfuscating there. Make sure that the real data is not in the test environments, but we can create those test environments much easier. So that's what we're looking at, why we're doing a backup. But sometimes the backups can be trickier than they appear. We'll obviously say, okay, well, I'll just send a copy out and that's it, away we go. Yes, yeah, you can do that, but let's think about it a little bit, and plan. Obviously, how do we do backup critical production systems? What about the running specific critical business functions? The monthly run. It's a billing system. We don't interfere with the online reports that are running. Make them go slow. Downtime's not acceptable. So of course, we want to make sure that it has to be an online backup. What about the negative performance? We're looking tables. We're doing backups of specific tables or schemas. We want to minimize that impact. And or again, finding that adequate storage or appropriate storage for keeping this backup and keeping it safe, and or even transferring it across. What are we talking about? We're talking about NFS, we're talking about cloud, we're talking about USBs, you name it, depending on different storage solutions and needs and environments. So what you can use depends on what you are backing up, of course. Okay, so looking at 3 things here: size, a tiny table, or a massive database. We can use enterprise backup for that. Obviously, you can do a backup of just a single table if you want to, or a single small schema. Maybe it's a vanilla schema that we're using. We're deploying Mysql in an embedded solution. So when we go to a customer or go to a potential customer, all we want to do is just copy that schema there, so it's already working and pre-configured, and away we go. Or it's a massive database, therefore, we need to do it in parallel, in parts, or whatever. The activity, obviously, the activity of the database, if it's very busy or if it's an inactive database. Don't overlap things in busy periods. Maybe for logical backups, we get collisions there within locks. For a physical, the backup will be larger, okay? Collects data to make everything consistent, so that obviously takes up space. We keep our reader logs online and everything. And again, if for a physical backup, we're looking at recovery. When we do the restore, and you will test this, of course, and you're all nodding your head, yes, we will test this. Yeah, no, really. Recovery will take longer, okay, and we need to make sure it's consistent. And again, if it's size and activity, then there's the cost. The cost is a database, and it's a compressed database, compressed tables. We can compress a lot of the data, a lot of the columns, a lot of the text, or chars or varchars, whatever. So depending on how compressed we are, and whatever, or we're not, we'll take things faster or slower. Then it goes, of course, that's the data we're backing up, and then there's a backup set itself. Do we want to compress that? And then I won't even mention security about encrypting and stuff like that. So we've done the backup. What about recovery? Okay, it's like, okay, well, what do we need to recover? How fast? Immediate? Is it replication? That's an option there. As soon as possible, feasible, several orders of magnitude and faster. It doesn't matter. We just, it's archival, then the cost and size are more of a factor. It doesn't matter because it's logical. So it will be slower, but then obviously the flexibility is more important. Maybe I'm backing up just the schema or restoring the schema, sorry. And what I want to do is just recreate the tables in a different engine, a different test environment, so on and so forth. Cost benefit, do the maths. It's simple to do. Do we have everything archived, writing to a media manager or tape? And obviously, it's, keeping that safe. Are we writing to cloud? Obviously, it's probably more your option nowadays. Writing to cloud storage, how fast is that? What about bandwidth and everything? Then long-term disk rather media. If we're looking at compression, because obviously that goes normally stored per year, provide amount of bytes. Therefore, the more we can compress or even purge. And that's where we can look at slave environments, obviously, so we can reduce the amount of data we want to store down and keep that to a minimum. So there are different factors here of saving points or stepping stones here that we can look at before we finalize a proper solution. So that was the intro, okay, so as I said, so I'm trying to keep marketing the stuff down to a minimum here. I expect you've been barraged with a whole load of presentations and PowerPoints before, and I'm sure you understand what the Enterprise Edition is, and if you don't, feel free to let us know, whoever your normal MySQL contact is, or look on the web or stuff. Or we've got other sessions as well we've recorded here. So have a look at what is the Enterprise Edition. But let's focus right down on, we said this is a guide to backup and restore for via scenarios, and that's what we're going to do. So full backups. Okay, backup options. Yeah, but we've got full, we've got incremental, we've got partial, so you name it, we've got it kind of thing. A full backup can be done to disk, so either to a disk or to image, to cloud, via an image backup, I guess single file, I should say there, or to tape, and again, that's a single file, that's what we call the image backup, okay? So we can do that kind of backups there. They can be converted, all right? So maybe if you've backed up an instance to disk, we can convert that into a single image, okay? Because maybe you then realize you're running out of space, you don't want to lose that backup, you want to push it to a cloud environment, or even to tape. Yeah, we can do that. And the same way backwards, okay, so we've got our tape we've restored, we're not quite sure if this has got all the data we wanted to, it looks like it has, so we can convert that back to, we can copy it into disk and tape, cloud, or a single image back to a backup directory, okay, an on-disk backup there. So once we've got the backup done, then obviously we need to be able to validate the contents, make sure everything's safe inside, that we're okay with it, and irrespective of what kind of backups we can use, them we can compress or encrypt or whatever, we can still list the contents there because this is all enterprise backup. This has all been done by MySQL backup space, and you then add your options in there. Okay, so whenever you're thinking, oh, I'm going to compress this, but this is going to be tiring, or it's going to be zipping it, or whatever. No, this is internal to enterprise backup. So don't think you're closed out. You have to restore. Then if your backup's 50 gig, if your database is 50 gig, you've backed up and it's down to 10 gig. You're thinking, oh, now I'm going to need now another 20 gig just to have a look and see what's inside. No. The compression doesn't work like that in backup. Okay. When we do the backup, we can add a with timestamp, okay, which gives us a lot of flexibility there. If you don't have a naming convention system for your backups, whatever, saying like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or if you do a monthly thing, or whatever, we can just do with timestamp, so it helps us avoid overwriting the previous backups. So again, look at that when you're running your backups. It might save you some time. So that's a brief overview of what we can do from the backup itself, the full backup. Let's have a look. Well, like we said, we can do a to disk or do a data backup. And how do we do that? MySQL backup, username, I've hidden the -p password bit here. You can put that in your myCNF file, your .myCNF file. You can put it in a default file if you want under a specific MySQL backup section, the same way as we have the square bracket MySQL D section, okay? So you can have a backup there, MySQL backup, so put that in if you want to, and it'll save you a lot of hassle as well. You can obviously hide that file away, or you can use a config editor and do it that way. But as you can see, it's -u, the backup user that's been previously created here, the socket because we're locally. When we're running MySQL backup, we're running it locally, okay? So keep that one in mind as well. We're running with the MySQL Backup command line utility that comes with the Enterprise Edition, or we've installed it locally, it doesn't matter. This will work with the GPL versions as well. So if anyone, and I haven't seen the questions yet, but I expect that will be one of the first, if not the question of today. Will MySQL Enterprise Backup work with community servers? Yes, it will, happily and very simply, as if there's no total transparency there. Breathe, Keith, breathe. Let me get some water. I'm just about to cough, so I need some water. Let me get some water first. 1 second. That's better. Thank you very much for Paul. Apologies there. Okay, MySQL backup, -u backup, the socket, and I put in the backup dir, which is where I'm going to store my backup. All right, so I've connected into the instance with my username, password, and socket, and I'm going to run a backup to that directory. Very simple. What it'll do is it will do a online backup of all the InnoDB tables to that backup directory. Everything else that's not InnoDB, it will do a warm backup. It will allow reads to happen, but whilst it's backing up just those tables, it goes table by table, putting it into a lock mode, so that we can obviously keep a consistent view of that table whilst we are backing it up. All right. If we wanted to use an existing backup image, so we don't have to connect to the instance, okay, we're converting it here. So we're saying, right, okay, we've done that backup, right? What I want to do is now convert it to an image backup. So I'm going to say the backup image is going to come from here. This is the backup directory there. I'm going to say image to backup directory. Okay, you can see that in bold there. Image to backup dir. All right. So we're converting that from an image to a backup dir. Say we want to do a backup to a single file. Okay, which means to image. Okay. So we're containing all the backup data. We connect into the instance as before, -u backup socket. The backup directory now, we've changed that obviously, as you can see, to full_img, and the backup image name will be this. Okay, and the command to add at the end there is backup to image. Right? It's pretty simple, no hassle there. Okay, fine. You say, right, yeah, but what I'm doing is my environment maybe not large enough for me to have to warrant doing a full backup maybe once a week, and then incremental backups every day and then optimistic backups every hour. What I want to do is just run a full backup every half hour. And I've had customers come to me with this saying, well, it's just so simple. My data changes so rapidly. It's just simpler for me to do a full backup every half an hour. If I do have to restore, I've got my binary logs online, so I can just restore and then recover. So maybe you want to do a full backup in the backup image, and you keeping it to that within the backup directory, which is in this case /opt/mysql/backup/full image. And we're doing it with the backup image, the full backup.img, but I want to add the with timestamp. Okay, so I'm making sure that every half an hour I'm getting my backup done there. I'm not overwriting everything. I'm not getting errors saying, oh, you've already got a backup here. You're already using this image. I'm doing with timestamp, and that'll create a timestamps directory underneath opt mysql backup. Okay, and with the full backup image name within each directory, I'm backing up to image. Okay, and again, using an existing backup directory without needing to connect to the instance, I'm going to do Mysql backup. The backup directory with the output is /full. The backup image name here with the image, so I'm doing a backup directory to image. So I'm converting a backup directory here to the image. Okay. Still doing a full backup, but now I'm going to do a backup to cloud. Okay, now obviously the first option and the only option and the best option is the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. And what we're going to do here, you can see here the same Mysql backup command line, still on the same machine, same server, -u backup socket, the same here. I'm just saying, okay, cloud service OpenStack, the container which I'm going to leave my backup is in KH, which is on the cloud environment. The image name, there it is, full medbackup.mbi. The user, the password, the template URL, which is the cloud storage volume there, and the backup directory I'm using locally on my home system is a home Vagrant Backup Cloud. I'm going to compress because obviously I'm going through the internet, therefore I want to make sure that the data is as small as possible. The backup image is implicit because I said before I'm doing a backup to image. When I do the hyphen here, you'll see backup image equals hyphen or minus or whatever you want to say. Okay, that's always because we've already specified the image, the object there, and that's before us. We do backup to image, which is the single file. A directory backup to cloud will not work. Okay, it just won't work. You can try it, but you'll sit there forever. So don't even waste your time. And again, more image backup, okay, to tape. This could obviously be whatever multimedia system you have. So you backup, Mysql backup, you use a socket. And here we specify --SBT library path, okay. Now this is obviously the Oracle library, the libobk.so. All right, the backup image name is SBT : and the name. The backup directory that obviously we're backing up is here. And we back up to image. And we're backing this up, okay, to the tape. Or another option is using the 64 bytes library there. And again, do test2, because that's the one we need, because that's the platform we're on, okay? So depending on, that's use OpenV, okay, net backup. So depending on what system we're using, maybe we're using net backup, or we're using Legato, whatever, you'll find your libobk and the .so or .so64, okay? So have a look at that one, confirm that one for your solution, and if you need more, there is a white paper on how to set that up for a lot of the networkers or Veritas or whatever. Once we've got our image backup, for example, done, because obviously if we've got a directory backup of the whole instance of the directory, we can just go into that directory and check it out, make sure the data directory, the backed up data directory and the real online backup data directory are the same. But if we've got the single image, we obviously want to make sure what's inside is okay. So first we can do Mysql backup. There's no connection to anywhere here. It's just the backup images here. Validate that, make sure everything's okay. There's no corruption. There's been no issues there whilst we're running the backup. And that's fine. There's all validated. Everything's okay. And then we can do a list image and say what's inside this backup. Show me the contents without having to back it, restore and everything. So those are the things about validating and listing there in a simple way. So that was a full backup. It's like, okay, great, that's a perfect world. We've done our full backup. We're doing it every half an hour, then once every week. We're doing it once a day. But then you're going to say, right, but I don't want everything because my data is like all data. It's different. There are different things that change. There are things that stay the same. And so therefore, let's have a look at maybe I want to do a partial backup. Or before I go on, before I do anything, just show you this here. Typically, a partial backup is more difficult to restore than a full backup because the backup data might not include the necessary interrelated pieces to constitute a complete Mysql instance. Have a look at that. And basically, we're saying, obviously, if we're doing a partial backup, we know what part of our instance or our schemas or our databases, even our tables, we're backing up here. So what do we look, we're running a partial backup, and that determines the scenario we'll have afterwards. So please think about what we're doing when we do a partial backup. And I say that, and I've got that here, so you do look at it in detail. So depending on the need and environment requirements, partial backups versus full backups and partial restores are different things. Maybe we still want to do a full backup and incremental backup and everything like that, so that then we can do a partial restore. So because we can extract from, obviously a full backup in an image, we can extract out just a table. However, if we're doing a partial backup, then at the most we'll have, that say we did a 50% partial backup, at the most of the restore we'll have 50%. Is that what we want to do? Then okay, check that one. We can do what is a partial backup. We can choose specific databases, tables, excluding tables from the backups, looking at specific transportable table spaces, use TTS and etc. And again, this is a partial backup. We can still compress encrypt with timestamp. That's all the same. For example, a simple way to start with partial backups is that we're splitting using include tables, exclude tables, okay? And you can see the examples here, depending on, that will determine the subset of data we want to use. So maybe we want to include all the tables within the circular schema. That's it, all right, the circular database. Or we want to include everything but, okay, we want to exclude the tables that start with film, okay, in this circular schema. So we'll back up everything here. And if we just want to back up a single table, then it'll be like include these tables, and we can put that table or a list of tables. Or we want all the tables in all the schemas. Maybe have a hosting platform and all the users all this have a different schema. But I want to make sure that the key table or the key set of tables that starts with film are all backed up. I don't care about the rest of them. So that's the way that works there. The partial backup is transportable table spaces. So this is an option. Obviously, we're transporting tables from one instance to another, or to restore tables back into the same instance that have been deleted, or for whatever. So this, again, like we said at the beginning, we can do different types of backups for depending on what our needs are. So if we have, so that was a full backup. It's like, okay, great, that's a perfect world. We've done our full backup. We're doing it every half an hour, doing once every week, we're doing it once a day. But then you're going to say, right, but I don't want everything because my data is not. All data, it's different. There are different things that change, the things that stay the same, and so therefore, let's have a look at what's maybe I want to do a partial backup. Well, before I go on, before I do anything, I'll just show you this here. Typically, a partial backup is more difficult to restore than a full backup because the backup data might not include the necessary interrelated pieces to constitute a complete Mysql instance. Have a look at that, and basically we're saying, obviously, we're doing a partial backup. We know what part of our instance or our schemas or our databases, or even our tables that we're backing up here. So what do we look, we're running a partial backup, and that determines the scenario we'll have afterwards. So please think about what we're doing when we're doing partial backups. And I say that, and I've got that here, so you do look at it in detail. So depending on the need and environment requirements, partial backups versus full backups and partial restores are different things. Maybe we still want to do a full backup and incremental backup and everything like that, so that then we can do a partial restore. So because we can extract from, obviously a full backup in an image, we can extract out just a table. However, if we're doing a partial backup, then at the most we'll have, that say we did a 50% partial backup, at the most of the restore we'll have 50%. Is that what we want to do? Then okay, check that one. We can do what is a partial backup. We can choose, specific databases, tables, excluding tables from the backups, looking at specific transportable table spaces, use TTS and etc. And again, this is a partial backup. We can still compress encrypt with timestamp. That's all the same. For example, a simple way to start with partial backups is that we're splitting using include tables, exclude tables, okay? And you can see the examples here, depending on, that will determine the subset of data we want to use. So maybe we want to include all the tables within the circular schema. That's it, all right, the circular database. Or we want to, so this is an option, obviously, we're transporting tables from one instance to another, or to restore tables back into the same instance that have been deleted, or for whatever. So this, again, like we said at the beginning, we can do different types of backups for depending on what our needs are. So if we have key tables we know that we want to, keep them safe or be extra careful on, this is something we could do in addition to a full backup, for example. The tables have to pre-exist, of course. There are different ways of working around that to make sure that when we do the restore goes fine. But the option is use TTS. Okay, when we do a Mysql backup, you put the backup directory, username, socket, whatever, and we add in all the options. And there's another one says use TTS, and it says with minimum, okay, locking, or with full locking. With minimum locking, there's hot copies of the tables are done and redo, obviously. If we do full locking, the tables are locked in read-only mode without redo. Okay, We can combine the transportable table spaces with include tables or exclude tables, okay? But when we're doing transportable table spaces, we're not looking, that's not in conjunction with the incremental backups. Because again, this is a partial backup. Because we're recording this and because you have access to the slide deck and you can download this and you can take this away, I've just given you a load of commands, but then, take this away and try it out. All right, so these are just because we're recording this and because you have access to the slide deck and you can download this and you can take this away, I've just given you a load of commands, but then, take this away and try it out. All right, so these are just some ideas for you to go and, play. So do a full backup exercise, take it to disk, send it to image, do it to cloud if you've got that, we'll create the cloud container first. When I send it to tape, so have a look at the SBT options, what you can use there. Get hold of the reference manual, see what you might need in the future, or see what your network or your third-party solution is using. Validate and list some admin and pointers and stuff like that. Looking around what the images you have. Run some partial backups of a schema, okay, of some tables with a specific name convention or whatever schema you want with a name. Exclude tables. Convert partial backup to a table-specific backup, and look at doing a single table backup as well. Okay. Now I'm looking at the slides, and I'm looking at the time at the same time. So let's see if we can go a bit faster. But now we're looking at incremental and optimistic backups. Okay, works obviously, we've done our full. What we're going to do is apply the incremental changes. So we're backing up only the data changes from since the last full or the last incremental backup. So the option here will be Mysql Backup -- incremental. Okay, and there are different ways to say, since the last backup. Okay, since the last full or incremental. And there's these. You can see there are 3 different ways of specifying that. One is hard coding a start LSN, sorry. By saying the end LSN from the last backup, I found that I've got that in my scripts, and therefore I can say my start LSN will be from there. Or you can specify one that you want specifically. The incremental base, you can specify that by saying, have a look from the history table, okay? Because when you run Mysql Backup, you will see that in the Mysql schema there will be some different tables created, and one of them is called the backup history, okay? And now you'll be able to specify last backup, okay, from that last successful backup, obviously, and it will say, okay, the history table says the last backup was done yesterday or 7 days ago, then I'll back up everything since then. That'll be my LSN starting point. Or I could even say that I don't have this table in my environment for whatever reasons, but I do have the backup available. So I can say incremental base, work from the directory, and then say the last backup is found in this path here. And you've got some more information there about what incremental backups. So always taking in compressed formats. So careful if you're trying to do backups, you don't do your full ones in compressed. You'll have to uncompress them first when we're applying incrementals and so on and so forth. And there's 2 types: there's incremental and incremental with redo log only. The incremental is obviously, give me all the data, all the pages and everything. And incremental with redo only is everything that's in with the redo log. Okay, we don't take the data files. So have a look at that one as well, because maybe like I said before, maybe you want to do a full once a week. You do incremental every day, and maybe every hour or every half day or whatever you want to do an incremental with redo log only. And that way we can save our binary logs there. So that was all the jargon, that was all the text. Let's have a look at the hardcore. Okay, this is the options. It says, okay, well, give me an example with a start LSN. We've got the use and -u backup socket. Okay, we'll say incremental. Cool. Start LSN. Well, that was the end LSN from my last backup. And again, we've got a backup directory. That's where we're going to be leaving it, and the image name will be stored under that file. And I'll do backup to image. Again, we could add more options here, like with the with timestamp. Okay, and you could see that happen written underneath it. We don't want to use the last start LSN, we want to use the backup history. And this is probably the one you're locked for, because it's the easiest way. We don't have to go and find any numbers from any last backups or previous backups, whatever. And you say take it from the backup_history table. And you say incremental base. Now, instead of the start LSN, is the history backup, last backup. And again, what's the backup directory? What's going to be /incre from incremental. The image name, I'm say keeping the same name there. Backup to image. And in fact, depending on your needs and everything, but you'll see us talking a lot about the image backups because it's more versatile, it's easy to transport from one place to another, and that's the backup type we recommend, all right? So I'm lifting my eyes up off of the screen right now because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is get you to around to all the options to use around the image backup. You go into cloud, you're going to list the contents, you're using a single file, you want to transport that around. You can do, the backup directory, a backup on disk backup, sorry, should I say? but you'll probably end up always doing an image backup, and you can convert that very easily without having to connect in and backwards and forwards. So the more flexible one is the image backup. Okay, going back to incremental backup, the last third option there is, like I said, we got the directory, and we want to say, okay, well, I've got my last backup from the 22nd of March here, take it from there, and do a backup. The incremental backup directory, which is a temp directory, we'll use this one here, and the image there is the naming, and we're going to back up to image. Types is incremental backup, /optimistic, and the /optimistic is highlighted out. There's different types of backups. Okay, I want to focus on the incremental backup here and make clear what it is and what it isn't. We can also take an incremental backup that does an optimistic scan of the changed blocks in the ODB files. And like I said, this is not an optimistic backup, but it's a faster incremental. So there's some link there to have a look for you to have a look at what that means. But how will we use it? Well, instead of just saying hyphen incremental, which is what we've been doing up until now, doesn't matter what kind of incremental backup we're doing, we specify the optimistic clause there. And that will go away and make a faster incremental backup, making sure that I'll only have an optimistic scan of the changed blocks. Okay, so the blocks that are not changed, and we won't be taking those out, even though the table may have changed or whatever. Incremental backup aside, what is an optimistic backup? Well, depending on the size of your instance, you may want to do an optimistic backup, because what you're doing is really backing up only that data that is being changed. All right, not so much as in this is an incremental backup, and I want to take all the changes out and everything. But maybe you say, oh, before you even go and analyze that, I'm going to tell you that I know that there's 5 tables that don't change, and there are 5 tables that do change. So this, the data is changed. I can specify that, and I can say, we'll be an optimistic backup. In that sense, the optimistic phase, it just doesn't back up redo, undo, or system information as it's inactive tables. We don't need to know that. We're not creating users very often at all. This is it's just a kind of like a logging system, or a billing system. It's like the same customers that very rarely change, or as a product, IDs, inventory type system. And really, what we're just changing is the quantities. We're not changing the products themselves that very often. So in that sense, we could say just back up the key things here. And therefore, the normal phase, as to the optimistic phase, the normal phase is back up everything that are busy tables. Well, that's cool. That's good. Within the options of the specifying optimistic backup, what we could do is say, okay, well, if the optimistic time, this is the time that there's been the tables have been considered optimistic. So this is since the last time. The optimistic busy tables, these are the tables I've identified. And if we say both options are specified, the busy tables will be backed up as normal, even if they haven't been modified since optimistic time. So starting from an optimistic time, saying, okay, well, these are them busy, this is busy, this isn't, we'll still specify that one. So that's a quick overview of what an optimistic is. It means we're trying to be more efficient with our backups. Well, again, Keith, give me an example of this. Okay, well, we're going to do an optimistic backup. Okay, so I'm going to do Mysql Backup. Now I'm using my defaults file, which has my user password and socket configuration inside. I want to do an optimistic backup since this time and back that up to an image. Again, you won't see anything like backup dir and everything here because I've put that inside my defaults file. So that's hiding the destination of the backup dir, okay, and the connectivity there is all stored in there as well. I could even say optimistic time is now. So therefore, do the backup for right now and do that to image because I know my data is changing, very actively, very fast. I could even say, what's my optimistic busy tables? Okay, so killer and film. Well, here I'll back everything up that starts with film. So I'm making sure that my busy tables are being backed up in the normal manner, and everything else is okay. If it hasn't changed, don't touch it. I want to mix, like I said, I'm a weirdo. I've done this and I want to change these things. So I do their busy tables will be filmed, but my optimistic time is that. So we know that all the optimistic busy tables will be backed up. The full optimistic backups can be used in conjunction with incremental optimistic backups when they run together. As in, you can run an optimistic backup on Sunday and then 6 incrementals afterwards. Okay, but not at the same time. As simple as that. Now test it. Try it out. Go on. Dare you. Again, all this is my attempt to try and get you to see the different options available. Because all we've done right now is just back up. We've done full backups, done incremental backups, and doing optimistic backups. Okay, great. Let's move on. Here we have it. Restores. Let's restore the data now. Now, before to restore, it is copy back. Okay. Now, you'll be saying, oh, right, but Keith, but we've done backup directory backups. So I've got all the data on my disk, and I've been using that, and I haven't done a restore command because the data's there. And all I have to do is copy that data directory, that backed up data directory, to another system. I'm going to be using now. I'll be starting up, okay. Well, my response to that is, you lucky so-and-so. You lucky, oh no, I won't go into any Monty Python scenarios, but that's not the way we restore. I've had other customers who said, I can't restore my environment. It's like, why not? What's happening? What copy back command are you using? I said, oh, copy back. What's that for then? Okay, so remember, there's two phases. One is to back up the data, and another is to restore the data. When we back up the data, we say, Mysql backup, blah, 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 back up. And then when we restore, we do Mysql backup, copy back. Okay? Why? Because of the last bit that says here at the bottom there says, copy back and apply log. Now, what I have done, I've specifically kept this aside because I wanted to make sure that you understood this properly, or at least I can explain this properly, or try and explain it properly. That's my fault here. So you can do backup, but at the same time you can do a backup and apply log. And the same way you say, well, if I've done a backup and apply log, which means when I do my backup, apply everything that's in redo once the backup is completed, so I've got a consistent copy then. I can do it when I back up, or I can do it when I restore. When I restore, if I did copy back, then I've obviously applied all redo beforehand, okay? Or I've got a backup directory restore, in this case, as you can see on the screen there. But when I do a copy back and apply log, that means I'm copying the backup to disk and applying the redo log that was there that I backed up when I did my backup, and it was just a backup. So if I do a backup and apply log, I'll do a copy back. If I did a backup, then I'm going to do a copy back and apply log, right? Does that make sense? Apply the redo, or when we do the backup, or when we do the restore. But we have to apply the redo, all right? Let's get a consistent backup here, so we can then have a consistent restore. So it's okay, right, I've lost everything, I lost my instance, I want to copy it all back where it was, and all I have to do is Mysql backup, defaults, data dir, don't even have to specify that if I don't want to, copy back and apply log, right? Oh, obviously I have to do, oh, sorry, the data dir is obviously my backup, where I've copied it back, and copy back and apply log. So that's recovering from everything lost, and I'm overwriting. If I've got a on-disk backup and I want to restore to a different path because I want to see, what's changed, what's different maybe, and so the defaults file, my backup is here, the data dir I'm restoring to is a full underscore restore, okay, and copy back and apply log, all right? And again, we're applying the redo on the restore. If we've got an image backup, okay, again, Mysql backup, my defaults file, the backup directory is here, the image name is this, the data dir where I'm restoring to, and again, copy back and apply log. What the hell, I've got a cloud backup. And my cloud system says that my ID configuration, my username, my password, this is my secure certificates and everything. This is a temp URL. I'm tracing. My object name is this because that's the backup I restored everything there. Sorry, the backup I did. This is a local data directory where I'm going to be restoring. And this is the backup path here. Backup images I previously said, and again, copy back and apply log. I'm applying my redo when I restore. I'm restoring a partial, I'm doing a partial restore from maybe my full backup, okay? So again, Mysql backup. The backup directory was a full backup, as you can see here, full image backup. The image name is this, and my data directory, the destination where I'm going to be leaving my partial restore. And what I'm going to be doing is including tables and excluding tables here. Okay, so I can exclude either tables or schemas from tables, whatever, and do copy back and apply log again. All right. We can also do a partial restore using the extract term. Okay. Now, this extract is extracting a table or a database or a list of both to the same or different data directory. And taking an example of the cloud restore here, what I've done is you can see the cloud object is full med backup here. I'm doing a backup image, and the source entry is here, and then the destination entry is here is different, okay, obviously, because what I'm doing is I've done my list backup, okay, I've found that data dir /nexus is the schema I want to restore, the partial restore, okay? And where I'm going to leave it, the destination entry is U01 data MySQL Nexus. I'll extract that there. You can do that with any image or cloud restore. Now, in order to do the extract, we'd obviously have had to do backup and apply log. We need to have a consistent photo of that. There's no applying log here. Or we've obviously applied the log, and there's apply log command as well, upon a backup that we maybe didn't apply the redo on. We'd have to apply that afterwards. So we can do that afterwards. Before we do the extract, of course. Restore reviewed. How are we doing for time? Okay, not that bad, not that bad. So we're restoring from tape. Obviously, we do the same way as for multimedia systems. Okay, we've done before. We restore the image to a directory first, and then apply log and finally copy back. Okay, it's as simple as that. Restore from a transportable table space backup and rename the table. Okay, now we need to use the user TTS here. Okay, that will have to be done with the backup. Has to be done with that. So therefore, we need to be able with the constraints in the naming system there. Or we can rename. If we don't use TTS backup there, and as you can see, this is the backup directory here says OPT MySQL backup partial image TTS. The backup image is named as such, and we've done what we're doing. We're bringing up these tables, and we're going to rename a table from Nexus replicant to Secure stars, because that's the way we want to do it. And so we can rename tables when we're restoring on the fly. Then. And again, we're copying back and applying log. And last but not least, of course, is in this scenario is I want to run a point-in-time recovery. We're always, that's the key one, okay? So what do we want to do? We've got a full backup, we've got our incremental backups, but obviously apart from incremental backups, whether they're optimistic, whether they're incrementals as they are, we're going to still have binary logs, probably, okay, in between incremental backups or after or whatever. So we want to come up until this second in time. So how will we do that? Well, like I say, we've got the full backup, we've got incremental backups, and we've got all the binary logs that hold all the DMLs since the last incremental backup. And up until the recovery need. Now, where will we get that? Well, we go into the Mysql bin log utility, okay, and we'd find the end LSN from the last incremental backup. So that'll be our start for the utility here. And then what we want to do is say, okay, well, we know that we have to recover up until 12 midday minus 1 second. Because at 12 is when somebody executed a drop table, and that was a table that got deleted, or it did a truncate, or it deleted a row, whatever. So we want to recover up until that date and time. Okay, that's where recovery has to stop at. And I thought I had that one in here, but that's one for you to go and play with. I apologize there. So in order to look at the Mysql bin log utility, that's something you should play with. Why? Because you can filter out from schemas, you can go and play with the bin logs. So you're doing data mining on the binary logs. So you can look in there and see what kinds you can generate SQL commands from the Mysql bin log utility, okay, and have a look at that and say, this is different, this is not something that I expected to be able to do. All right, but for a point-in-time recovery, that's something, again, you need to practice before you go into production to do that. So, in this try it out slide, for superheroes at the end there, I said point-in-time recovery. I haven't gone into that detail, but really that's a utility you need to look at. But remember, like I said, it's a full bin replica, the incrementals, and then go to your Mysql bin log utility and pull that information out just before. Real use cases and tuning. Like use cases. For example, why would we want to do a restore? Well, maybe doing it for replication or for cloning scenarios. For example, in a DB cluster or a replication scenario, it's going to be very easy. If we're running MEV backups and Mysql backups, once we've done a restore, all we have to do is run reset master on the slave, and then when we've done a backup from a replication scenario, the enterprise backup by default generates a metadata script that is backup GTID executed, which means this is the GTIDs that have been executed on this instance that was backed up. And I've stored this on here, so I can then do a set global GTID purged, and with obviously the GTID set here, and that'll give us the starting point for that slave to go on from. So when that slave is then connected to the master, it will say, so you're my master. Okay, great. And then what I can do is start replicating from this point in time, and that's it. What else can we do for enterprise backup? Obviously, we can do migrations. Okay, so we can use different MEB versions here to migrate from on-premise to cloud, from a lower version to a higher version. But again, we need to get hold of the Mysql backup utility there for that specific version. So if we come from version 5.5 to 5.7, stuff like that, have a look, see, you know, if that Enterprise Backup Restore works fine, test it out, or even going to 8.0. You need to use, you know, the 5.7 Mysql Backup utility when you're restoring, because it'll give you errors on the 8 one. And then obviously, if we're doing that 8 backups from 8.0.16 to 8.0.17, you know, use the specific Mysql Backup there to be able to, you know, to upgrade or whatever. You can also encrypt as well, okay, something I haven't mentioned here, you know, in all the examples and the test scenarios, but you can encrypt as well as compress, okay, in different levels of different algorithms of encrypting and different ways to encrypt as well. So depending on what you're using, what your needs are, what your security is, you can use a key vault or whatever, something similar to specify the key files, encryption layers, and so on and so forth. Like I said, encryption, sorry, I jumped ahead of myself there. You can just say hyphen compress, now go and do a default, or you can do the uncompress, or you can choose your method or your level, depending whether you want space or speed. Restore and renaming a table, like we said, in the example we saw, we were using a transportable table space backup, then we restore a drop table there and put it into a different schema, and we can validate the data, or we can even import the rows that we wanted from that table we've re-imported back into the instance in that scenario. And also, real use case is that we're talking about Enterprise Backup here, Mysql Backup utility for InnoDB tables, MySerm, and everything else, but except NDB cluster, okay? We don't want to create any confusion here, but when you're using a Mysql cluster, the NDB cluster, the NDB tables cannot be backed up using MEV. Okay, NDB has its specific backup procedures to start backup with using Cluster Manager. That makes life a whole lot easier. Mysql Backup, Enterprise Backup is not for NDB tables. Okay, what else have we got here? Running a backup is taking hours and hours and hours. You've got lots of data and say, Keith, you know, this is still not good enough. I want to do some performance tuning on my Mysql backup processes. Help me out here, help me out. I've got a different slide deck I did quite a few years ago that talks about performance tuning on MEV, but here's some highlights here of how to, you know, parallelize, use more than one core, not impact so much maybe the instance as you want to, so you may want to reduce this down. But we've got the read threads, the process threads, and the write threads, okay, that allows, you know, obviously to do depending on how we're extracting up or backing up or whatever. Process threads, again, you know, applying logs. Only needs one, but you know we can choose here. The memory limit, again, that if we can give it more memory, so that when we are compressing or we're doing, you know, encryption or whatever, I've got faster writing into memory there rather than disk. We caps the number of 16 mega buffers. You'll see that on the output there to 18, but we can change that there to 300 to 3,000 or whatever you want. The number of buffers, okay. There's calculated max calc 60 buffers needed if we've got a memory limit of 960. But you can choose those there. You know, set the read threads and the write threads to the number of spindles you have. Maybe the process threads are a lower impact. You know, maybe 50% of the read and write threads together or less. Try not to cause swapping. Obviously, our specs in CPUs and buffers can automatically be set. Leave it as is, but you can test and see your own performance things there. To the helpful parameters, just want to highlight there. We've got a lot of customers saying, my backup's running slow, my backup's running slow. And so like, okay, well then what's your instance doing? So yeah, but that's okay. I've got it, every time I run a backup, it's impacting my instance. It's like, yeah, of course it will, because you've got everything on the same disk, and you're writing, you know, got double the activity or more, but then you're writing at the same time. But then set expectations. It's like saying, well, this is a virtual machine, isn't it? What's your I/O rate? What's your expected I/O rate? Run DD commands, test it, show me what you're going to get, different sizes, different buffer sizes or data file sizes, and that'll give you an idea of what to expect from the backup. Don't just say the backup runs slow. You know, do things around that. And again, I've done that in a different presentation of, you know, setting expectations from, you know, using different DD commands or copy commands or whatever, and you can see, you know, for things that are not enterprise backup that are just, you know, operating systems, and that will give you an idea of, you know, the I/O rate to expect. Anyway, in addition to all of that, what things might help, okay, so have a look at, you know, maybe you get on-disk full reports from time to time. So what do you want to do? Do you want to abort the backup, abort and remove the backup, or just warn? things, not avoiding knock-on effects. Skip unused pages. It sounds more like magic. It's not as useful as you think. Okay, empty pages are returned in the next apply log. What do I want to execute if I find there's some locking going on when I'm running my backup? So, to back up a memory table, stuff like that. I want to make sure that when I do my backup, I'm only backing up InnoDB, because that's the way I am, because I have nothing else to use, so I don't need to worry about anything else. I want to show progress. I want to see my script. I want to see online. I want to see my console, how things are going, to give me a progress report. And things that may help out to, when we're running backups, everything, to reduce the InnoDB purge batch size down to 1, run the backup and then move back to 20, before and after backup execution, because that might help your backups there. More references. You want to investigate on your point-in-time recovery. You'll have a look at these, the blogs, or the documentation, or just send them an email, whatever. This is the Enterprise Edition. Do you have trials there? www.mysql.com/trials. I'll send you to the edeliveryoracle.com, so you can download the Enterprise Edition trial for 30 days, or just get in contact with us for whatever needs you may have. In that sense, as you say, get in contact with us. Keith.holman@oracle.com if you need a question directly around anything we've done today. And let's have a look at questions. Okay. Got 5 minutes or so just over, so let's have a look. Yes, thank you for attending. Lots of people saying thank you for the session, it's been useful. And again, thank you for attending. And for all of those who can't obviously ask questions because you're seeing this on the recording, thank you for looking at that. As we mentioned, you can back up. The Mysql Backup utility doesn't care about whether it's an enterprise server or a GPL server or a community server. It'll back it all up. So that's no problem there. Okay, because there are lots of different types of MySQL out there in the world, forks and whatnot. MySQL will back up MySQL instances. You can try it against different flavors and different types, such as one which is a girl's name here. But you might get problems with obviously things that are non-MySQL. So maybe you want to specify only InnoDB tables and stuff like that. Okay. But so you should be okay there. Something I haven't mentioned here, there's a question here, is what about if there's any integration between the Enterprise Backup and Enterprise Monitor or Workbench Enterprise Edition? And yes, there is. There's another session on the backup, which is like kind of a more intro, more marketing, by saying, Enterprise Monitor can follow the processes and warn you of a failed backup or how the backup's gone, successful or failed. And the Workbench, the Enterprise Edition, gives you a graphic user interface. Okay, so therefore you can run, do click if you're more that way inclined to run your scripts that way. You can plan the jobs as well to run from the backups from the Workbench, the Enterprise Edition. So that way as well is something you can do in order to make life easier, running from your Workbench. What do you need for the Workbench now? It's obviously an SSH tunnel to obviously locate the MySQL Backup utility on that system. Right. It's not done over the internet. Obviously, we're not sending data backwards and forwards. It's local. MySQL Backup's done locally, and if you're specifying a host name and it's not locally, obviously then you can get into trouble. Right. So remember, MySQL Backup is done locally. Okay. Is there a catalog like RMAN for the Oracle DB? No, there isn't. This is your backups. Obviously, there's a backup history table within each instance. So when you first run a MySQL backup command in any instance, these tables are created and that's stored locally. Okay. If you have 15, 50, or 500 MySQL instances, each one's got its history locally. There's no consolidated history there in that sense. The best option there would be to go to Enterprise Monitor, and that'll show you, obviously, the list of your backups there. And that can help you show, see how each backup has gone and everything like that, so you can monitor them that. Okay. Yes, there's some compression options, everything, as we've seen. People maybe joined a bit early or you left joined late or whatever. There are compression options or encryption options that we can choose. So please feel to investigate. Somebody asking for a specific point-in-time recovery scenario, send me an email and I'll get that one to you. I've got an older presentation that will show you exactly the step-by-step needed to do that one. So it's not complicated at all, it's just obviously it's got its steps. Right? Thank you, thank you. Yeah, please go and try out. Use this slide deck to test and play. That's what it's here for. That's what we delivered the session for. So hopefully it's going to help you move forward. And please remember, if you don't take anything out of this session, please do remember we do a backup. And to restore, we do a copy back. Please, backup, copy back.